Today marks the 1-year anniversary of Cyberpunk 2077, and I want to talk about the game, for multiple reasons. First of which is because I wanted to make this video nearly a year ago. However, on my very initial first look review style thing of Cyberpunk 2077, I was like, yeah, the game's got a lot of flaws and there are these problems, however overall I think it's good and worthwhile, and there's a bunch of stuff I like about it. In that video, which I've just summarised for you right now, I got feedback that I was being way too negative, that I should stop being such a negative person, shouldn't make so many negative videos, it was all negative. I can't even say that word 3 times, it was so negative. So I then didn't make any follow-up videos. I basically kept it as oh yeah, this is my review, it's mostly good, but there are a bunch of bad things to keep in mind. And I want to change that review. Not a huge amount, but a bit. I want to basically go more in depth, because when I made that video, I'd played 4 hours maybe of the game. I'd played a bit of it, but really not gone through it all. And now I have gone through it all. And it's been a year of patches and updates and time to contemplate what really worked in the game and what didn't work. And I've really just got a lot more to say about the game, and if I don't say it now, I likely never will. So, here we go. I'll be splitting this video into 5 sections. There's the intro, which is the part we're in now. There'll be the good. I don't think I need to explain that. The bad. I definitely don't need to explain that. The missed opportunities. Hopefully I don't need to explain that. And finally, a conclusion, where I'll just round up everything and give my final opinion, so to speak. But because I'm such a negative person who's always too negative all the time, let's start off with the good points. So straight up, combat in the game is solid. It feels decent, it's not the best combat FPS game I've ever played, but it's good. It's more than adequate for what it is. You don't ever play it and think, oh my god, this shooting feels like 20 years old or something ridiculous like that. It's just good. Melee weapons feel somewhat responsive, guns have a bit of variety to them. Oh, that's actually the second point I'm already leading into, is that there's a lot of variety in the weapons. There's several different SMGs, pistols, revolvers, snipers, shotguns, swords, knives. There's a good amount, and there's uniques in both weapons and armour, so those are things I like. It's simple, but it's an important start, and when you're talking about the good stuff, the fundamentals really do matter, and this is a fundamental part of the game. There's a lot of combat in the game, so having a lot of equipment, and just combat in general feeling good, is definitely a positive. Now, a smaller positive, but one I definitely want to mention, is that the game has a photo mode. I personally don't think it's a particularly good photo mode, it's okay, but any game which includes a photo mode, rather than no photo mode, gets a +1 in my book. I really love taking photos inside of video games, so having a photo mode, always going to be better than not having a photo mode. On to something that I can really get positive about, because it's actually, amazingly well done, is one mission in the game. Which I know sounds almost a little condescending at first, but no. This is because this is a standout mission as textbook, here is what you should do in quest design. The mission is called The Pickup, it is in Act 1, and it is a masterpiece of what an RPG quest should look like. I'm not going to spoil everything about it. Maybe I am going to spoil everything about it. I was going to say I'm not going to spoil it in case people want to play it, but it's still going to be good to play through even if you know what happens in it. So, the main part of the quest is you're going to a base of the Maelstrom, who are this violent gang, and you need to pick up a device. Just a little device for a future quest. Simple premise, great. What makes this quest a bit different is that there's 4 ways it can go. And these are dependent on your actions within the quest, and prior to the quest as well. It can go anywhere from completely peaceful, where there's no fighting, you just pay for the item, everyone's chill, you just click on the right dialogue options to keep everyone relaxed, you don't try and pull anything shady, you're just willing to pay the cash, grab this item, and be escorted out of the premises. You can do that can all go peaceful, very smooth, fine. That's one way it can go. At the other end of it, you can kind of double cross some people and have it end in this just like chaotic fight for a warehouse, ending in like a little mini boss that you have to take down. And I like that level of variety. There's also some other nuances that can go to it. I did mention there's 4 ways it can go, and I've only mentioned 2 of them, but that's the range, and that feels great in a quest. Knowing when you go into it that depending on your choices, you could end up walking out without a single bullet fired, or you could have to take down the big boss of the gang. It's just really cool. I like it. It's a well done mission, the dialogue's on point, the visuals for it are on point, the atmosphere's on point, just everything about the mission is good. I have nothing negative to say. It also has some knock-on consequences later down the line. Nothing huge, but your choices in this mission do get kind of brought up later. It is perfect, and deserves recognition. Something else in particular in Cyberpunk 2077 which stands out as great is the cybernetics. Being able to mod out your character's body with all these different things, like a double jump that you just get built in, or flaming punches, or better visual thingies going on. There's just some really cool stuff with cybernetics. It's 100% a must-have inclusion for a Cyberpunk game, and I love it. Additionally, I want to talk briefly about the perk system and the whole leveling up system. I don't love that, but it was an interesting way to level up your character and build them with like body and cool and hacking and engineering and all of these different skills, and a lot of the perks were somewhat inventive rather than just, hey, here's extra damage. There's some cool stuff in there, and while I don't love everything about it, I'd rather see like a bit of an inventive one that I kind of like than just the same standard level up, 1 perk point, level up, 1 perk point, level up, 1 perk point, and all the perks just be like basic damage improvements, basic damage reduction. It's nice to see something a bit inventive. One thing which has been rated incredibly highly is the game's music, which is the music you'll be hearing as the background for this video, because it's that good. You want to know how good it is? This game has been nominated for Best Score of Music in the Game Awards. I'm pretty sure it's the only nomination it's got for anything in the Game Awards. It may have already won that by now, I don't actually know when the Game Awards happen, but yeah, it's been nominated for great music, because the music is great. I've had my own hot takes about music in the past, see my Fallout OST video, but this one, I'm just like, yeah, music's really good, I jam with it, solid. And finally, for the good point, the romanceable characters have really cool questlines. And here I'm specifically talking about Panam, Judy, and River. These 3 characters have great questlines that are just fun to go through. Like, you really get to experience what made these people who they were, and just get a taste of their own life within Night City, what led them here, what their motives are, what kind of a person they're becoming. Like, it's just a really well written story and really well written character development as the quests go on. It's almost a bit of a shame that it's just for the romanceable characters, because honestly, the fact you can romance these people is the least interesting part about their quest lines. Like, the romance options are irrelevant. It's just like, oh hey, here's a really cool story you went through. Wanna sleep with the person you went through it with? It's that's it basically. But the quest lines themselves for those characters are great. Having a quest line structure around a side character works perfectly, and I love that. Now to talk about the stuff I don't love though. First up is driving. Oh my god, it is so bad at times. The vehicles in this game do not respond ever how you think they should. It is very difficult to get them to control right. They often like to just kind of ignore the fact that you're driving on a road. If you ever bump into something or anything while out in the wilderness, you could go flying. Acceleration and deceleration, they're not matched. Like, it can take ages to slow down at times, but speeding up can happen like instantly. It's just not very good. It's lacking in the driving element, and for a game with a pretty decent sized open world, You want to be able to drive around a lot, but when the driving mechanics are bad, it's often easier just to walk. Now, a huge problem, which should have been fixed in the past year, is the issue of, is it a bug or a feature? Because often you don't know. Like, sometimes there's obvious bugs, like I had Jackie walk through, like, some papers and then just fly everywhere, and that's like, okay, Jackie's just messing up. There's times where objects will float in the air. There was one time I could not take down an enemy because I was on the phone, but normally you can take down enemies while on the phone. I had a civilian in a car who I shot repeatedly with a flaming submachine gun, and they just acted like I was spitting at them, basically. And then after I did that, police just teleported to my location, which is something police just do. And yeah, there's a lot of stuff where it's like, okay, is this a bug they're going to patch out within the next year or two, maybe? Or is this just a part of the game which we're going to have to deal with forever? And now that it's been a year, and the majority of the past year's worth of patches have been just purely bug fixes, it feels like more of this stuff is just going to be in the game forever. Like, it's easy to forgive the game at launch for bugs that happen, but now that it's on patch 1.31, and it's been like 99% bug fixes, the only non-bug fix stuff we had was like some cosmetic items added. It's like, yeah, we're just gonna have to live with this now, and there's still a lot of issues. And while most of them aren't anything too bad, some of them are very annoying. Teleporting police in particular, just like committing any crime and instantly having the police there, and the police just kill you. They don't arrest you or anything, it's just, oh, you accidentally shot a civilian during a firefight, oh, you instantly die now. It's just annoying stuff that I think we're all just going to have to live with, which makes the game worse. Something else which makes the game worse is the limited initial zone and the weird area barrier, because right at the start of the game you're locked into Watson, and they actually do quite a good job for the most part of making this feel like an actual lock-in, except for the fact they leave some roads open which you can just run down, but if you run too far the game's just like, no, you're not allowed there, and it teleports you back. And the game will continue to do this after Watson is opened up and you try to go outside of the boundaries. The game's very bad at putting like something properly in your way, and there's a lot of just, oh, you went too far, we're teleporting you back instead. I hate that in games, it's very annoying. And also, within Act 1, you cannot get outside of Watson, which means you're very limited in what you can do. You have to go through the first part of the story, which is a sizable chunk, before you can actually like properly play the game. Like, it's not freedom open world things in games like Skyrim where you just get through the tutorial mission and then can do whatever you want and ignore the main story. No, you have to go through a good amount of the main story, which also means you have to deal with both V and Johnny Silverhand, who are terrible characters in my opinion. So V is the player character, and they strike the worst balance possible between a blank slate and a well-written character. So, talking about Skyrim, like, the Dragonborn is a blank slate character. You can have their backstory be whatever you want, you can make their personality whatever you want. Talking about well-written characters, Geralt from The Witcher. He's a very well-written character in an RPG. Both of those options work. Either a character with a very heavily defined personality, or one with no personality who you can just imprint yourself onto. What doesn't work is what Cyberpunk did, which is a character who tries to seem like a blank slate, but then will randomly start getting like abusive to people, or just be a bit of a jerk, or come across as like really sympathetic at points. It makes role-playing a nightmare and practically impossible, and V in general just seems like a bit of an asshat. That's the only way I can describe them. And Johnny Silverhand, played by Keanu Reeves, terrible. Like, I don't think the performance is necessarily bad, it's just the person living inside your head is a deranged lunatic who just wants to blow everything up and kill all the corporations. And while corporations are bad, yes, cool, it's never really, like, fully justified. It's more so just, he's an angry person who wants to blow up big inhabited skyscrapers, which isn't a great look, and makes it kind of hard to feel sorry for him at times. Especially when he's constantly swearing and cursing at people who are supposed to be his friends, and just playing as like just a bad person isn't all that fun. Especially not when you can't be like an evil roleplay character. Anyway, that's enough about me ranting about the characters now. Let's rant about the missions instead, because the majority of the main story is insanely linear. So I already talked about the great mission we had earlier. You get one of those. You get one of those, and then right at the end of the game, you get to pick your ending. You literally just get a choice where it's like, hey, do you want to do this, 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 or this? And that decides what your ending is going to be. Apart from that, all the other main stories, you cannot change their outcome. You just go to the quest, follow the markers. There'll sometimes be one like mild optional thing you can do, which doesn't really change much, maybe gives you some extra loot, and then the story carries on. Now, if you really gel with the story, it's fine. But if you don't like something in the story, or want to have a choice in the matter, no. And surprisingly enough, you may have guessed that, for me, I didn't gel with the story, so having to just make stupid decisions constantly was not fun for me. Additionally, a lot of the side missions are very repetitive. It's go to a place, find a thing or a person, eliminate all your enemies, take thing/person back to checkpoint. That is 99% of the missions I'd say in this game. And while a lot of RPGs have this problem, when it's added into all of the other problems, it really makes things worse. Also, some minor things I noticed in my last session is sometimes the game gets really empty, and the world just doesn't feel like it's alive. Like, I was driving around, just trying to, like, chill out a bit, and there were no people. Not just in the outskirts or the suburbs, but, like, in Night City. Like, I was driving down a highway, and Night City was empty. It's a city. It's supposed to be, like, filled with people, and sometimes the game just doesn't spawn anyone in. And I'm guessing this is a bug? Maybe? But the game just feels really dead at times. And because you can't interact with, like, random civilians and stuff either, the world just feels dead. Like, you don't feel like a part of Night City. It's very clear that this is a video game that you are playing, and your character is not a part of the world. You are just shooting stuff because it's fun. And that's a shame. One other minor point, there's loot everywhere. This doesn't sound like a negative at first, and I won't be able to describe it so well, but if you've played Cyberpunk, you'll get what I mean. You are just constantly seeing loot everywhere, and you may as well pick it up, because you need to sell it or scrap it to improve things, but you never read what any of it actually is, and it doesn't matter what any of it actually is, you just pick it up. It's just absolutely everywhere, always just in your face, loot, 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 and it just gets a bit overwhelming. And you know what, after like a year, I'd have hoped there'd have been more patches and stuff as well. Like I said, we're in version 1.31, and we've had the major bugs have been ironed out, some minor stuff's been sorted as well, there's been some cosmetic items added. That's it for the game. That's it. I honestly don't know if we'll ever see any DLC at this point, because it's been a while and we've heard nothing. But anyway, that was the bad over. Welcome back to anyone who skipped that section. Now onto the missed opportunities. Because there are some points where as I was playing through I was thinking, oh yeah, this would have been so cool. So first up is a faction reputation system. Because the game has factions, but they're kind of irrelevant, they're just different skinned enemies for the most part. You get like the Maelstrom, who I mentioned earlier, you get the Tiger Claws, you have all the various corpos like Arasaka and the like. Like, you could have had a faction reputation system, where the more you help out this faction with quests, the more they like you, and their enemies dislike you. Like, I don't need to explain this to you, it's a simple idea. You could, like, side with the corpos to make them more of your friends, or you could side with the gangs so the streets are, like, safer for you to walk through. It feels like it should have been in the game, and it wasn't, and it's a real shame. Something else which would have been great was side activities. It would have been nice to just be able to do more casual stuff. Like, the two things you can basically do are drive around the city, shoot people. Those are your two choices when playing this game, really. Just being able to, like, go to a noodle stand and eat, being able to play basketball or have some minigame like that. any of those kind of things that we see in other open world games would have just made this a far better world to walk through. One of my biggest kind of gripes from early on in the game is that after the player intro, you get shown this cinematic of you building your way up in Night City from being an absolutely nobody with nothing to their name, all the way to having this nice apartment, having a group of friends and stuff, being like a little bit known throughout the city, and then the game starts. What I would have much preferred is that the cinematic that you get to see is what you actually get to play. You start with nothing, you do small jobs at the beginning, then build your way up to the bigger and bigger stuff, get yourself an apartment, a vehicle, make friends with people, meet them for the first time. That would have been great. Instead, it was just a little video you get to watch. Real shame. One other thing, a karma system. Already talked about reputation, karma would have been lovely too. Because in the game, you can take down enemies non-lethally or lethally, and it doesn't really matter. There's a few missions where you're asked to go non-lethal, and you get like a little extra cash generally for going non-lethal in these missions, and that's about it. But they implemented a non-lethal and lethal like way to do everything, but it doesn't really have any significant changes. So having like just a basic karma system would have been like a nice thing to do. And finally, I wish fixers were more than just quest givers. So fixers are like the people who set up jobs in Night City, and they come across as kind of cool when you first play the game and start getting through it, but then you start meeting them and they have like 4 or 5 lines of dialogue as their entire personality, and then they just send you quests over text, and that's it. I feel like fixers could have been just better. Just better, have them be their own actual characters. Have them have some more nuance to them. Instead, they could have been replaced with like a bounty board, honestly. So it's kind of a shame. I feel like there was a lot more potential with them. And there we have it. In conclusion, I have a little bit more to say. Because honestly, this isn't a game where it's like, oh, it's bad, or oh, it's great. The internet, in fact, loves to be like, this is the greatest thing ever, or this is the worst thing ever. And you see this in like the Google reviews of the game, because it is not a 1 out of 5 or a 5 out of 5 like people are saying. But a 3.3 out of 5? That seems fair to me. Like, that seems, yeah, 3.3 out of 5, that's a score I'd be happy to give it. Because it's not an amazing game, it's not a terrible game. If you gel with the main story, then you'll really end up liking the game. But if you don't get on with like the characters that you come across, and you don't really like the narrative that's being presented to you, you're gonna struggle to replay this. Like, over the past few months, I've tried to replay this game. I wanted to get through it again, and I just couldn't, because I hate going through the main story again. Like, it was interesting enough one time going through, but it is not replayable for me. And it's a real shame, because I wanted this to be good. I love the world of Cyberpunk, I enjoy first-person open-world RPGs. This should have been a perfect game for me, but it wasn't. It's fine overall, but there's too much bad in it to make up for what is good in my opinion. Like, it's a little more negative than positive, and I doubt I'm ever going to play it again. Hence, this was the only time I really got to talk about it. So, if you want more Cyberpunk on the channel, that's not going to happen, and I'm sorry. But thank you to all of you who stuck with me through my ramblings. This has gone on longer than I thought. Apparently I had way more to say than I assumed I did. But once again, thank you all very much to all of you who have listened. Sarge out.